Tim, thanks very much.
Thank you, thanks Martin. Well, good morning, or whatever time it is when you're watching this. As Martin says, my name is Tim Ward, and I was fortunate to be a volunteer with the shoebox trip last year to Romania, about this time. Romania is a massive country. I'm just going to hold the map up. You see there, it's a huge country in size, and the trip took 5 days. I know that many of you have given to the shoebox campaign over a number of years. Perhaps you wondered what it's like when the boxes leave your depot, what happens to them and what difference it makes to people's lives, because that's what it's really all about. So I'm just going to give you a whistle-stop tour of what we did and some of the activities, some of the projects that's happening now. This is new technology for me. I'll be using the PowerPoint presentation, so I hope you can hear me. And I've got to tell you first of all, there's 5 trustees and about 100 volunteers who help each year with the shoeboxes. So from you packing the shoebox at home, or your children or family members, packing them, getting them to the warehouse eventually, which actually is happening tomorrow, the 13th, they're packed up and sent off to Romania. This next slide should show the distribution centre in Furnace, and you can see on there some of the activity and the volunteers. There's also a large warehouse, the main one, in Kendal, and that's the Hayes delivery depot in Kendal. And this year we've also got depots at Carlisle, Whitehaven and Workington, so this is a new venture, even in these pandemic times. Here we've got a picture of the boxes being unloaded in Romania. Now last year we sent out 10,192 boxes. You might think, well, that's not an awful lot, is it? 10,000? Actually, that's enough to fill a big container lorry. And given that every shoebox that you pack with all those items has to be unpacked, checked to make sure it's got what they should have, and repacked, that's equivalent, as you can see on the screen, to unpacking and checking one box every minute for an entire week without a break at all. So it's quite a mammoth task, really. So those boxes arrive at Romania, and on the screen now, here's the team that went last year, a number of us. The guy in black at the front with the maroon coloured jumper is Nicu Gal. Nicu Gal is the representative in Romania for People to People Foundation, who's the charity that we work with. So throughout the year, Nicu gets requests for shoeboxes by various pastors, ministers, missionaries, community workers for the shoeboxes. Last year he had 30,000 requests, or should I say requests for 30,000 shoeboxes, so he can't fulfill it every year. We set off from Liverpool on the Saturday and went to Budapest in Romania, Bucharest rather, in Romania, and then we travelled across the country. As you can see on here, we travelled to Vaslui County, which is on the screen just near Moldova, and arrived there on the Saturday evening, and then set to the next morning, and for the next 5 days we went to various places. I'm just going to show you one or two of the images to let you see what Romania is like and some of the schools we go to. So on the first day, just next to the school was this image. It almost looks medieval. Many people there use horses and carts and open land such as that. So the first school we went to was in a place called Valea Popi. And I'm just going to show some images now of us giving the shoeboxes. What is really good is that every box that we take with us is given to a child by one of the team, or one of the team that Nicu has over there. And I was just blown away by this. I know how children act with toys and with gifts. There's no pushing, there's no grasping for it. The children are almost amazed because they're not used to receiving gifts. It was quite amazing, really. And some of the children, as you can see in the next few pictures, they would take a box, give it to their mum or dad outside the school, who would then share the contents amongst the family. I took a picture of this boy here because he's using a yo-yo. Nobody in the school knew what a yo-yo was, and it was about 30 years since I've used one, so thankfully nobody was harmed at that time. And here's a few more images of the children receiving the boxes. This next one shows a child receiving from one of our members, Shirley, a toothbrush and toothpaste. Most of the children have never seen a toothbrush before, or at least it's the first time they've had their own toothbrush rather than a family one, and we had to show them what to do. That's quite amazing, isn't it? Here's a few more of the children receiving them. This was an interesting one. It's quite funny that the doll that this girl got was almost a carbon copy of her. She could call herself Belle if she wanted to. That was given by a school in Barrow Furness. But there's a girl there. She is very happy to receive it, even though she's not smiling. And here's some lads really quite excited about that. Now, on the first day, after we went to one school, the guy who was taking us round at the time is a former Romanian Orthodox Church priest called Pavel. And Pavel works in that area among a number of villages and communities. And outside the school was a lady with her son waiting for Pavel to have a chat with him. And he spoke to her in Romanian, and then we followed her and him in his car, in the van we were in, to this house which you can see on the hillside. In the distance you can see a town. That hillside there's nothing for a few miles around. This is about 2 miles away from the school. The nearest water to that is about 400 metres away up the hillside, I think it is. Now this lady had 4 children, lived in there ostensibly with her husband, but Pavel and his church supported her, bought that little plot of land and the money to build the house there, about 130 chickens and some pigs and a donkey. Sadly, her husband was an alcoholic. Occasionally he would come home, take a pig or take a chicken and sell it for drink. So she had about 10 chickens left, 1 pig and the donkey. But it's amazing really that she was bringing those children up. As you can see the other children in the picture look quite clean. There's no electricity there, there's no water nearby, no power at all, and she walks every day to the village. And that's some of the work that we can do through your help in providing the shoeboxes and the donations allows Paolo and his community to work, his church to work in that community. Here's some of the images of the children at the schools that day. As you can see, they often help us unload the boxes, the big crates from the vans, and then hand them out to the children. So we're now in the village of Garbesht, and on this image here, the chap in the top left with the hat on, that's Powell, the worker in the area. And quite often the people that we meet there, the families, are happy to show us their homes. They're very proud of their homes, they're very welcoming people. And we went into this house, and I think on that particular one, there was mum, dad and 8 children living in 2 rooms. 1 electric lamp was the only power there. There was a little stove in one corner, and that's typical of some of the houses that we saw. The next day, so day 2 now, and we go to a village called Hetia. Now you may have seen, some of you may have seen a documentary a number of years ago called The Forgotten Village. And this village here is outside a town called Svanti Georgi, St George, in Transylvania, which you will have heard of. And when you travel out that road there, you suddenly come to a turning, no sign at all to it, and about 1.5 miles up that track is this village of Hetia. And I wasn't prepared for what I was seeing here. The image on the screen now is of the school. It was a former municipal school that had closed. The People to People Foundation, through the shoebox charity, are able to employ 3 members of staff. There's 3 rooms there and 1 toilet building, and that's the school for the entire village. I say toilets guardedly because they're actually just a hole in the ground. The children there walk about 1 mile from the village to this school, and only the children from the village who attend school get a shoebox. So that's a real encouragement for the children to get an education. It's only really by an education that they will progress beyond where they are now. So it's an incentive for them to go, for their parents to send them. And of course outside the school, even those who aren't getting shoeboxes are very keen to grab the cartons which are used in the homes. And here we can see some images of the school. In the very top left there you can see some coloured tables. They were given from a school in Barrow Furness that was refurbished, and the tables were sent out there. And here again is Shirley in the centre, one of our volunteers from Barrow, with some lads. Hetia village now. This is something you might see on a film about medieval life, really. It's just a town or village of shacks. There are about 300 people living there. It's quite amazing, really. Very little power to there, although, should I say, in the way of appliances, Most homes there have got electricity and bizarrely a TV set, which the government gives to them for the equivalent of £1 a month, so that it can amuse the people and keep them subdued, as it were. Here are a bunch of lads in the village, some wonderful people living here, and it's quite amazing when you see the conditions in a moment. Here's a typical family, allowed us to look around their home, and this next image shows the kind of what the houses are like inside. The only heating in most of the houses is a single stove. Most of them only have one room or two at most, and this single stove is for heating, for cooking and everything. And also you'll see that most of the homes there, which are little more than shacks, are brightly coloured. They've got a tradition of painting them in rather lurid pink, purple and green. Apologies if your house is painted that colour. And here's some of the children there. Now this next slide shows a watering hole. That's where the animals get their water from. Except, it isn't just for the animals. Given that there's 300 homes there, and probably 6 to 8 people in each of those homes, quite a number of people living there. No, that watering hole is not only the water for the animals, but for all the people who live there. So everybody in that village, to get any water for washing, for drinking, for any purposes at all, uses that watering hole. And as you can see, that some of the water there is quite discoloured because they've been washing their pots out after painting the houses. One of the projects that the People to People Foundation have, with ourselves as well to fund it, is to build some more wells. Hopefully one of them will have a cover over for the people to get water and a separate one for animals. At the time of, just as of today, 2 boreholes have been drilled. The local council authorities aren't interested at all in the village because the people in the Roma community aren't registered, so their votes don't count for elections. So they're not bothered really, except you still got to get planning permission. They don't supply any medical facilities at all, any services at all, but they still want planning permission for us to dig a concrete surrounded well. It's quite amazing, but you can imagine that 2 wells to get some clean water in better conditions. We went in November, December, and it wasn't snowing and wet and icy. You imagine what that's like in the real grip of winter. So that's Hetia, quite amazing really. The next day, we went to another area and a chap called Yanel was our guide. You can see him in the picture at the top left. He's got a brown coat on. He's a local church pastor and he took us around various villages and schools. On this image you can see some of the typical houses in the villages and once again one of the homes. It looks quite chaotic outside in some of the photographs with scores of children, but when the shoeboxes arrived they all formed up in orderly lines responding to either a fata for girl or biat for boy, and they were given their shoeboxes. Yanel was a wonderful guy and he invited us to his house for lunch. His wife cooked a meal. They have 4 children, 2 of them are adopted. He isn't from the Roma community, and yet 2 of the children he's adopted are 2 orphans. And his wife sang to us during the meal. A wonderful guy, and the work of Boxes of Hope that you're helping with really helped him in that community. This is typical in most villages, this well here. Although some of the houses you might see in some of the photographs look fairly modern, very few will have any internal water or toilets. Most of them have a well, sometimes a communal well, but often a well in the land just near the house. And this last image here, that was typical of the shacks in the village of Hetia. I think most of us would tear that down if that was our garden shed. And yet this is a country in the European Union. It's quite amazing. So the next day after going to Hetia, we went to a place called Cluj, or more properly Cluj-Napoca, which is a medieval city. You might go on holiday. It's quite a famous tourist destination in Romania. After being to Hetia, we thought we'd seen poverty and we'd seen quite deprivation, but nothing really prepared us for what we saw there. So Cluj that's the image of Cluj most of you may have, but we didn't see that. That's another image you might have of Cluj. It looks a fairly modern European city. No, not that, or not even that. Where we went with this place. And this is Patarat. This is the municipal city rubbish dump. And if you look at the very top left, you can just see the edge of the house, the edge of a shack, and there's a community who lives there. Most of the Roma community don't own the land where they live, so they move from place to place. So nobody wants land next to the municipal tip. People to People Foundation bought the land off a Dutch missionary society, and so we own the land, so they can't be moved. But it's worthless land, really. In Hetia, again, the foundation bought the land so that people are safe and they can't be moved on. So Patarat, it was built next to the tip. Some of these images might look as though they're quite tumbled down, quite messy, lots of rubbish. The reason that the people that live there don't clear the rubbish up is because if they take the rubbish into bags to the tip, they're charged to dispose of it, and they don't have money for that sort of thing. And also, they did have a clear up once, and people would come along beside the tip, don't want to pay money, and so just tip it out of their cars, and it blows into the village. This is quite an amazing community, as you can see on here. Now that is looking over the main part of the village. We met a guy called Bert, Pastor Bert, an old Dutchman. He went there, he heard about this community called Patarat that was literally infested with rats from the tip, where children were living and actually having their ears bitten by rats. And he and his wife went there for a 3-month little mission, really, to support them, to kind of work amongst them. And he's been there 27 years. And he lived on the side with them. If you look at the main picture there, behind the house with the red roof is another building with a gable end, and that's the community centre. There's a school, a shop, a laundromat, toilets, all run by the people who live there. Most of the people that live in this place have jobs in the main city of Cluj, perhaps cleaners or selling in the streets. And whilst we were there, we were just amazed by the grace of this man who has built the school, employed a school teacher to look after the children there. And where did he get his resources? How could you live there for 27 years? He actually lives about a mile away now, not on site, but he still goes there each day. And he was one of the most gracious men I've ever met. He actually said to us, when one of the team said, you know, how do you do this? He said, well, I've got nothing, but my father is very, very generous and gives me everything. And of course he's referring to his Father God. And as we've seen some of these images here, living amongst these people have almost nothing, but he's just turned their lives around. And your continued support of the Shoebox charity really helps us provide services to that community. So our final day then is at Tinker School. Many of you will know of Tinker School. This is further over on the west of Romania, and Danielle, the head teacher, is employed and supported by the foundation through these charities. And as you can see here, since 2014, quite a bit of work's been done. You can see there the condition of some of the buildings being renovated. You see the condition of the roof. And Tinker today, well, this is what was the kindergarten. That was the school. This is now the kindergarten. This next slide shows the former staff room is a medical room now. So for this village and the community, there's no medical facilities, so the school is able to offer those. Now this is a normal school, and the foundation is able to support the children and in turn their families in that community. In this picture we'll see some storage facility. You may know who in United Reformed Church actually gave a donation so that this storage facility could be taken. That's actually container boxes put together, and this is secure storage for the school, so that's really great. And the school now is doing amazing things. The gifts that you give, when you give a suggested donation of £2 with each shoebox, that is to cover the costs of the boxes going over there. But because the volunteers like myself and others who go out there and distribute do it for no charge, we're able to have money, and throughout the last year £1,000 is given to the school so that the children can have a hot meal at least once a day. So every month money is given to the school. We've provided laptops and tablets to the school to allow them to continue doing lessons. Romania wasn't as affected in the pandemic as the UK has, but the school was closed for a while, and so even in conditions such as this, they can have Zoom meetings and continue their lessons. And the last village was just 10 miles from around here. This is called Dickernest, and this possibly was the last carton to be unloaded. You can see two of our volunteers there looking rather worn out. So this brings us towards the end now, and as you can see on there, the bottom image is of a Zoom meeting. I've been sent that image from Danielle, the head teacher, who's at the top in the middle, and your generous donations and donations of many people across Cumbria and North Lancashire enable us to support Tinker School and make a massive difference to people's lives. So you can see that really it's not about the shoeboxes. The shoeboxes are a vehicle to allow people to continue working in the community, to get a message of hope and of love to them. And our prayer is that churches such as yours will continue to do this. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope maybe some of you want to be a volunteer. Contact us again. Do pray for us this weekend when this goes out, because we'll be packing shoeboxes and the lorry will begin its long journey. The only difference this year in the pandemic has been that we haven't sent a group out there to distribute these, so Niku and his team will do that in Romania. Thanks for your time, and I hope this has been of some use and you've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Sorry for that. Can we just take a moment and give thanks for that work in prayer?
Yeah.
Let's pray. Loving God, we give you thanks for all the work that goes into the Boxes of Hope project, all the volunteers who give their time, and all the folk in schools and churches and communities who spend time throughout the year collecting items, getting things ready, wrapping and preparing the gifts as they journey. May your blessing be with all those who receive a gift, those who are part of distributing them. May good news come to all who are waiting, and may love and peace be shared with those who are a part of the project and receive the gifts. Loving God, hear our prayer.